Hello, dear class. This is one of the last, if not the last, of my videos for this semester, in that we're covering our last play, as it happens, not a book, but a play, in the form of Sean O'Casey's masterpiece, Juno and the Paycock. So I want to add a few thoughts, if I may, to, I hope, prompt you into using O'Casey in your final when you talk about what you've gathered of Ireland from the syllabus that I provided. And certainly the O'Casey play provides an opportunity to reflect on Ireland itself. Obviously, Ireland is not simply its working class, its urban working classes, but here is a very unflattering image of Ireland presented to itself at the Abbey Theatre with which you will now be becoming familiar, and which indeed is the Irish National Theatre. It burnt down in 1951, and so it's had a couple of different homes, but it's back in its own true new home. I've seen quite a few plays performed there, and it's lovely to think of with this theatre's history, greater, I think, more notable than any British or American theatre I've ever been in. You think about the original production of Playboy of the Western World, and the riots and the fury, and how the cast, when they took the play to America, were arrested in Philadelphia in I think it was 1912, around there. It was first performed in, I think, 1907. The theatre had opened in 1904. And they were arrested for indecency, but the judge threw out the case. So there was always scandal and fury, and so-called Irish patriots, very much like so-called American patriots, those who wrap themselves in the flag, often objected to the plays that were staged bravely by the Abbey Theatre. And Yeats himself, a great figure in the literary world, then had to get up on the stage when the audience was making it virtually impossible for Sean O'Casey's play The Plough and the Stars to continue. And he said, "You are a disgrace," he said. "Is this how a work of genius is to be treated every time that genius arrives on the Irish scene?" You louts and Philistines out there come and scream and complain. The complaint against Synge with regard to Playboy of the Western World had to do with language that was not obscene at all, but was suggestive of female attire in a way that to make a mention of female attire at all on the stage was a scandal. Matters were much more serious when O'Casey's plays were performed. He was a leftist, a tireless leftist, a socialist, to the point where he actually found a lot of Ireland's radical parties and radical missions, including the Easter Rising, for him smacked much too much of nationalism and too little of socialism. It's actually a very fair criticism if you view it from the socialist point of view. And he remained true to his socialism. The Plough and the Stars is probably the best onstage exploration of that, but it's implicit in our play, Juno and the Paycock, in its satirical aspects, in which the inability of the very people that the socialist revolution should have hauled out of the squalor and illusion and sheer dumb stupidity in which Ireland's working class and isn't it true, any working class? I don't really see, although I have asked this question in my quiz, I think, maybe I didn't, about, you know, what does this tell you about the Irish working class? Well, it tells you a good deal. That it would also tell you about any working class. To be a worker is to be subjected to exploitation in a capitalist society, to put it at its most simple. And if you're subject to exploitation, why would you ever become an intelligent critic of society? More likely, you would go between poles of disgruntlement and reward, and never really conceive of or attach yourself to a revolutionary movement. It's a miracle that revolutionary movements have ever got going. When you look around at your fellow human beings, you think, oh, I'll never get all of them together in one place on one cause. So here was an unflattering mirror held up to Dublin society, to the Dublin slums, and that wasn't a pleasure for those patriots, which really means, as has already been said by somebody else, my country, good or bad, is like saying my mother, drunk or sober. Nonetheless, that is the position taken by patriots, and anybody who criticizes, you can see it here in America, anybody who criticizes America, God help them, you're not allowed to do that. You must be a traitor, you must be working for a foreign power, and to protest that you actually love America and want it to be better than it is, does not satisfy the patriot, whose real goal has nothing to do actually with America at all. And that's the problem. Patriotism, described as, I think by Dr. Johnson, as the last refuge of a scoundrel, is in fact, patriotism is just a bolt hole for a con man. So this play, wonderful as it is and is performed all the time in Ireland, Juno, obviously it horrified Irish patriots who thought that the Irish should only be shown in a heroic light. It was treason to show them in any other light. O'Casey, however, knew exactly who his fellow countrymen were and what they were like. And one of the beauties of the play is its feminism, as was appropriate to O'Casey's socialism. Speaking entirely for myself, one of the reasons I was drawn to socialism was not just that it supported equality, real equality, equality of opportunity, equality of cash, but it also didn't just believe in a half-hearted way in the fight against sexism and classism. It was wholly committed, and racism. It was wholly committed to the war against those things. And so here is a great feminist play, Juno the Paycock, in which it's quite clear that your only salvation is somebody like Juno, with her clear-eyed, her clear-eyed and yet loving soul, does her best to believe in her man, her husband, her family, even as they show themselves to be the feckless idiots they really are. And it's a great relief for some of us, at any rate, that at the end of the play, she's got away with her daughter and her daughter's baby. And she has that wonderful line about how the child has an exceptionally good chance in life, because this is a child that will have two mothers. And she couldn't have put it better and more positively and encouragingly. So that's a beautiful thing. And the portrayal of the captain, the fake captain, the faux captain, and Joxa Daly, his sidekick, his buddy, um, is, is a horribly true image of the boastful drinker. All that's missing from Trump is the drink. It's a very interesting thing that our president doesn't drink. He has every other vice. he he breaks every other commandment. Although maybe I haven't read the commandments recently, but maybe there isn't one that says thou shalt not drink. In which case, he hasn't broken any commandments. Moses certainly hasn't broken that one. But otherwise, he manages to be as frightful a human being as it's humanly possible. It seems to me, but without drinking. And if the Captain Boyle, Jack Boyle, had managed to give up drink, who knows what he could have achieved? But for an Irishman, this is unimaginable. To drink is to be Irish. To be Irish is to drink. And so he can behave absurdly. He can cast out Joxer one day and include him in back again the next. So it is those two rascals who wind up so drunk they don't really even see that there's no furniture in the room to which they return after everybody has reclaimed their goods when it's discovered that the captain is not, in fact, legally the recipient of the inherited largesse for which he was hoping and on the basis of which he made all those purchases, which had then taken back. It's like winning the lottery and finding out actually that there was a fault in the ticket and you haven't won. It's a terribly cruel thing for the poor captain to experience. But the whole world is in a state of chassis, something that the captain observes early on in the play, and with which he pronounces the end of the play. And so whether you or not you get a huge inheritance, whether or not you lose it again within a matter of days, it doesn't matter, because basically the captain and Joxer are agents of, what should we say? They're agents of the destruction of everything, agents of dispersal. So it's clear that you will never be able to build something, a building or a nation, on the sand, on the foundation of Captain Boyle and Joxer Daly and people like that. It cannot be founded, and so O'Casey turns in despair away from even his supposedly revolutionary comrades. And his reward is such as that he was greatly acclaimed in the Soviet Union, which, in fact, in terms of theatre, the Soviet Union is one of the great hosts to world drama, and was a wonderful thing that he was appreciated there and honoured as one of the greatest writers in the world, and his plays constantly performed there. And I find this very comforting, not because I think the Soviet Union is or has been a wonderful place, but they at least they knew a socialist when they saw one, and celebrated him. And it was a little steep for Irishmen to accept that they were portrayed as shifty liars and deluded drunken fools. They weren't too happy with that. But if you've ever spent time in an Irish pub, as I have, you will feel in your very bones the truthfulness of Juno and the Paycock. So I hope you enjoyed it. It's also painfully funny and painfully shocking. Poor Johnny Boyle. A tragic story set in it. Mary's could have been as well, but we hope will not be, because her child will have two excellent mothers. And the suitor that she had, one was no good, and the other proved to be no good, abandoned her for reasons that are totally unacceptable today and yesterday to men of good sense. So I wish you well, Sean O'Casey, a wonderful writer, and a totally worthy last port of call for our Irish Literature course. Thank you for joining me in it. Bye now.